Welcome to BL Stories, where romance, drama, and unforgettable boys' love come to life. Love knows no limits, and the best stories aren't always straight. Subscribe now and join our growing BL-loving family. I slowly raised my hands in surrender. I didn't want to get hurt. The man held a knife close to my neck, his expression cold and intense. I didn't know what he wanted, but I knew that if I fought back, it wouldn't end well. After a tense pause, he slowly lowered the blade, realizing I wasn't resisting. "Didn't think we'd find you, did you?" I tried to speak, but his hand was covering my mouth. He let go and I gasped slightly. I think you've made a mistake. Please, I don't want any trouble." I was surprised by how scared I sounded. He didn't respond with words, just a sharp punch to my face. Pain exploded across my cheek. "Don't act clueless. We've been tracking you all over town. Did you think you could just take our money and disappear?" "I honestly don't know what you're talking about." I paused, a sick realization dawning. He thought I was Jeff, the guy from the diner. I remembered something about a debt. Someone named Frankie, maybe. The name echoed in my mind. This was all because I happened to look like him. I was getting attacked over someone else's debt. What are you shaking your head for? You think this is a joke? You're paying back every cent, with interest. I'm not Jeff. His glare turned murderous. He hit me again. What kind of game are you trying to play? I'm serious. I just look like him. You're not the first person who's made this mistake. Another punch. Words weren't going to help me. As far as he was concerned, I was Jeff. And Jeff owed him money. Fine. Okay, I'm Jeff. Just stop hitting me. I'll pay you back. How much? $2,000. I swallowed hard. Alright, I'll get the money. Just, please don't hurt me anymore. He stared at me, eyes burning with suspicion, but finally let me go. "You have 1 week, he said sharply. "What? 1 week? Or things get ugly." He waved the knife threateningly and I flinched. Then, just like that, he walked out. I stood there. I had just agreed to pay back a debt that wasn't even mine. Well, now, who was I even supposed to give the money to? I stepped out of the stall and looked at myself in the mirror. The bruising wasn't too bad. Maybe I had tougher skin than I thought. I splashed some warm water on my face, mentally crafting a lie for Swash, and left the restroom. "What took you so long?" Swash asked, concerned. "Just a long potty break," I said, forcing a light tone. He smiled, but Bradley was already tugging us to the next exhibit. I followed, but every step was cautious. My eyes darted around the aquarium, scanning for danger. I didn't want Bradley or Swash getting caught up in this. Whoever this Francis guy was, he seemed dangerous, capable of doing something awful. What if he went after Bradley for ransom? That thought made my chest tighten. Swash terrified me more than Frankie ever could. So, for once, I decided it was better to tell the truth. If Swash knew what was going on, we could both protect Bradley. And if anything happened, I wouldn't carry all the blame alone. "What's going on?" Swash suddenly asked. "You've been acting jumpy since you came back. You look scared." "Swash, I think I'm in some serious trouble." His expression turned serious. "What kind of trouble? Legal? Financial?" "Financial. But it's not my fault." I kept my voice low as people walked by. "Explain." "I apparently look a lot like someone named Jeff. He owes some guys a lot of money. Just now, one of them cornered me in the restroom with a knife. He thought I was Jeff and demanded I pay back $2,000. I had no choice but to agree." Swash's face darkened. "So now they think you're him. And they want you to pay the debt." "Yes. But my real concern is what happens if they see me with Bradley. What if they decide to use him as leverage?" "Keep my son out of this," Swash said sharply. "I don't want him involved either. I'm just saying, these people don't seem like the type to play fair." Swash gave me a long, hard stare. I knew I'd just ruined his afternoon, even though it wasn't really my fault. I started to wonder if Malone ever really loved me, or if it was just because I reminded him of Jeff. The resemblance was clearly strong enough to cause serious problems. I sighed, rubbing my eyes. This day was supposed to be relaxing. Swash walked over to Bradley, who was staring at jellyfish, and said something. Bradley's face fell, and it made my heart ache. I hated being the one to cause him pain. He walked over and held my hand. I froze. That one small gesture, a public show of connection, could put him in danger if anyone saw us. But I couldn't pull away. "Bradley, can I carry you to the car?" He looked up at me, puzzled but nodded. I picked him up gently, pressing his head to my shoulder to shield his face. Swash noticed but said nothing. We walked out together, quiet. I felt a little safer once we reached the car. I never wanted to step foot in the shed aquarium again. The car ride was silent. It was nearly 5 p.m. Bradley had fallen asleep. Swash glanced at me in the rearview mirror. What was that about? What? Carrying Bradley like that? Did you want them to see he was with you? No, I was trying to hide him. When he held my hand, I realized someone might be watching. Holding him close was the only way to keep his face out of view. Swash considered that. Slowly he smiled. Smart move. We still need to figure out who these people are, he said. We should call the police. And say what? That some guys mistook me for someone else and want me to repay a debt, or else they'll do something drastic. They actually said something like that? They were very graphic. Not funny, Swash. He chuckled under his breath but went quiet when Bradley stirred. So, what's your plan? I don't know. It's not even my debt. Jeff must be pretty good at hiding. I could give you the cash. No. I already owe you enough. I can't let you add more to that. I'll never pay it off. Do you have savings? Friends who can help? No savings. And my only close friend is on their honeymoon right now. Then take the money from me. You know, we don't have to pay them. I mean, I'm not Jeff. They just refuse to believe me. And clearly, they're not great at telling faces apart. Michael, that's risky. If they were bold enough to threaten you in a public place, there's no telling what they'll do next. I'm not the one who wronged them. Jeff is. But you got threatened. And you were with my son. We don't know if they saw us. And we don't know if they didn't. I paused. Swash had a point. I was making risky choices in a dangerous situation. Someone had seen me going into the restroom. Who knows how long they'd been watching? They might have spotted me with Bradley earlier. Worse, what if they were following us now? I leaned out of the car window, scanning the street behind us. There were too many cars and traffic to tell if anyone was tailing us. Maybe once we reached a quieter road, I could be sure. I tried to memorize the vehicles in view, but there were too many, too different to keep track of. I sat back down, tense and restless. Swash glanced at me but stayed quiet. I must have looked completely rattled. I pulled into myself, shrinking into the seat like I could hide from the world outside. I still think we should go to the police, Swash said calmly. These people threatened your life. Maybe they can put you into witness protection or something. That only works if I'm actually a witness, I replied. Or someone with influence. I'm just a guy living in Boys Town. The police probably wouldn't take me seriously. And if those people see me going to the cops, that might make things worse. He sighed as we turned onto his street. I turned to check the rear window one more time. No suspicious vehicles followed us. I let out a breath and settled into my seat. All I wanted now was to get inside and stay out of sight. Swash parked the car in his lot, and we got out. Bradley was still asleep, so I carried him carefully. Swash led the way to the apartment, and I followed in silence. Life had handed me another disaster. And for what? Falling into someone else's mess? Maybe if I had never met Malone, I wouldn't be caught up in all this. That's not fair, I reminded myself. Malone had nothing to do with Jeff's problems. Jeff just happened to be Malone's ex. Still, my thoughts drifted to Malone. He was sweet, charming even. Maybe a little intense, but still kinder and more thoughtful than anyone I'd ever met. Well, maybe aside from Swash. They were on the same level in their own ways. Could Malone help me with the money? Probably. But would he? And how could I even ask without bringing up Jeff? That would make things awkward fast. Swash already offered. Maybe I should just accept it. But I already owed him so much. He'd said he didn't mind helping, but I wasn't sure I could keep accepting that kind of generosity. We weren't even a couple. What had I done to deserve that? Just take the money and stop arguing with yourself, my inner voice whispered. I snapped out of my spiral of thoughts when I noticed Swash staring at me. What's going on in that head of yours? He asked with a soft smile. You were frowning and unfrowning like you were arguing with yourself. He opened the door, and I brought Bradley to his room, grateful for the break in conversation. When I came back, Swash was on the phone, speaking in a professional tone. No, I haven't. What did they say? Oh, that's actually not too bad then. If that data holds up, we could, thanks, talk soon. He ended the call and joined me on the couch. So, he asked, what are you going to do now? I let out a breath. I'll take the loan. He nodded, not pressing. I didn't want to owe him more than I already did, but I was out of options. As I turned on the TV, I landed on a vampire series I didn't even like. One of the characters looked oddly familiar. Maybe that's why it held my attention. So, who exactly do you plan to pay back? Swash asked. I don't know, I admitted. They assumed I was Jeff, so they figured I'd already know. I don't. So, you're just going to walk around with $2,000 and hope they come find you? Pretty much. That's a terrible plan. This entire situation is terrible, I said with a dry smile. I'm just trying to keep up. He returned the smile and gently took my hand. I wasn't sure why, maybe just to offer reassurance. But something about the touch lingered. There was warmth and maybe something more. I realized then, I needed to tell him something. I'll be leaving again tomorrow. Just for a bit. To see your boyfriend? Yeah. He's the clingy type, I chuckled. Can't go too long without me. Sounds a little possessive. How does he feel about you living here? He's okay with it. But honestly, he'd rather I wasn't. And you're planning to move in with him? That's the idea. Swash raised an eyebrow. Isn't that a bit fast? How long have you even known him? A week. Isn't that long enough? For a second date, sure. But moving in? That's huge, Mike. I like him. I want to give this a real shot. You can still take your time with it. Living together is a big step. Do you really think you know him well enough? It's not marriage, Swash. We're just trying it out, like roommates. But you already agreed? So, it was his idea? Yeah. Swash gave me a long, unreadable look but didn't say more. Maybe he didn't like Malone. Maybe he was worried about me. Maybe he was jealous. He had shown signs of being into me. Was that what this was about? The theory amused me. It made sense in a twisted way. I smiled quietly to myself. Swash eventually excused himself to his room. I turned back to the TV, just in time to see the vampire characters in a steamy scene. I quickly turned it off. Not my thing. Still, his words lingered in my mind. Maybe I was rushing. 2 weeks isn't a lot of time to know someone, especially not enough to share a home. I hadn't moved in yet. There was still time to slow down. Malone didn't seem to be rushing, so maybe I could take a breath and reevaluate. Yeah. I'd wait a month. If things still felt right, I'd go for it. I pulled out my phone and scrolled to find Malone's number. Michael, where's Dad? I looked up. Bradley had woken up and was standing by the hallway. He's in his room, I answered. I'm hungry. All right, let me make something. I'll call him. Bradley disappeared into Swash's room. A minute later, Swash emerged with Bradley laughing in his arms. The sight warmed me. He placed Bradley on a kitchen stool and started pulling ingredients from the fridge. I smiled, put my phone down, and joined them. Dinner was one of Swash's signature combinations, unusual, but it smelled amazing. I excused myself to wash up while he served the plates. When I returned, they were already eating. I sat across from Bradley and looked at my plate. Sirloin steak, rich gravy filled with vegetables, and creamy mashed potatoes. There were little specks in the mash. Spices, I took a bite. Everything was delicious. Wow, I said under my breath. You act like you've never had steak before, Swash joked. I'm actually more impressed by the potatoes, I said, swallowing another spoonful. What's in it? It's a bit spicy. Ground sesame seeds. Adds a nutty kick. I froze. My stomach turned. Suddenly, it became hard to breathe. My vision tunneled. I looked up at Swash, his face shifting from amusement to panic. Michael, you're allergic? I gasped, my tongue swelling. I pushed back from the table, stumbling to the floor. My chest felt tight, my throat closing in. I fell to my knees, wheezing. The room blurred. My thoughts raced. This is bad. I'm going to pass out. The ceiling spun above me as everything slipped away. The constant beeping was annoying, sharp and repetitive. At first, I thought it was someone's alarm clock disrupting my sleep. Then I realized it wasn't a dream. Oh, thank goodness, a voice said with relief. I opened my eyes slowly, vision blurry. A young male doctor hovered above me, looking visibly relieved. I tried to speak, but my mouth was dry, and something was covering it, a mask of some kind, making it hard to move. I looked around, confused. I was in a hospital. The beeping came from a heart monitor next to me, its wires stuck to my chest. There was an IV drip hooked into my arm. I couldn't remember how I'd gotten here. I didn't feel sick, just disoriented. How are you feeling? The doctor asked. He looked far too young to be in charge. Maybe he just had one of those baby faces. He couldn't have been older than me. Maybe he had one of those syndromes where people look younger than they are. Fine, I croaked. My throat was dry and sore. I reached up and pulled the oxygen mask off my face. Water. It took the doctor a few seconds to register my request. Then he hurried off, presumably to fetch a drink. I tried to sit up but immediately felt lightheaded. I lay back down, trying to process everything. The unit I was in was busy. Doctors and nurses rushed around. Some walked briskly, others jogged. Every patient I could see was unconscious, connected to tubes and machines. It reminded me of how Jason had looked in the ICU. I wondered if we were in the same hospital. Suddenly, one of the monitors in the room let out a rapid, high-pitched alarm. Several staff rushed to a bed and surrounded a patient. I heard one of them shout, "Clear." There was a loud thump. Defibrillator. Just like on TV, except no drama, only clinical precision. This was routine for them. Life and death were just part of their job. The young doctor returned and handed me a bottle of water. I drank eagerly, the cool liquid helping me feel slightly more human. As the fog in my brain cleared, the memory hit me, the allergy. The sesame. It had happened before, when I was a kid. I'd been happy to eat anything I could get my hands on. Then, without warning, came the swollen tongue, the breathing problems, the dizziness. I never forgot it. I didn't even remember what I ate that day, but it had nearly killed me. Ever since, sesame had been off limits. Michael! I turned toward the voice. Swash had just burst into the room. His face was tight with worry, his eyes wide, scanning every part of me. Sir, you're not allowed in here, the doctor said quietly, clearly a bit nervous around Swash. I'm sorry. I just had to see him, Swash said, breathless. What happened? I asked, my voice still scratchy. I couldn't remember much. You were brought in with anaphylactic shock, the doctor explained. Thankfully, he brought you in just in time. You were semi-conscious when you arrived and nearly stopped breathing. You lost consciousness not long after. I feel okay now. That's thanks to the epinephrine and antihistamines, the doctor replied with a small smile. You stabilized a few hours ago, but you didn't wake up until now. He nodded at Swash, thought you might be in a coma, but we decided to wait and watch. He seemed proud of the decision, like it had been a difficult call. I was just glad I'd made it. So when can I go home? Soon, if everything checks out. We'll do a quick physical exam, make sure you're neurologically sound and not in any immediate danger. Your speech is fine, so that's already a good sign. He mumbled something about cranial nerves as he scribbled on a clipboard. Swash stayed quiet but looked visibly relieved. A few nurses came in and began detaching the monitors and IV. No one told Swash to leave, even though visitors usually weren't allowed in ICU recovery rooms. The doctor returned and started my exam. I answered simple questions, identified touches on my face, counted fingers, and even stuck out my tongue. Most of it felt a little silly. Swash watched with quiet amusement. After some final checks, the doctor turned to Swash. Are you with him? Huh. Are you a relative? No. But I brought him here. Alright, I'll need you to fill out some paperwork. And for the future, I recommend keeping an epinephrine auto-injector nearby, just in case. Swash grunted a quiet acknowledgement and followed him out. Across the room, I heard more beeping. The same patient from earlier was crashing again. Clear, someone shouted. I was discharged a few hours later. The sun was out, but the October air was biting. I hadn't realized how cold it was from inside the hospital. I wrapped my arms around myself, annoyed that I didn't have a jacket. Swash must have left it behind in the rush. Understandable. I got into the passenger seat of the car. Swash climbed in and inserted the keys, but didn't start the engine right away. Instead, he turned on the heater and looked at me. I'm so sorry, he said quietly. I had no idea. It's okay, I replied. I'm alive. What happened at the house? I can't remember much. You collapsed. I called 911. The dispatcher told me to check if you were still breathing. The ambulance came quickly and started treating you right away. You were in and out. I honestly thought you were slipping into a coma. That lined up with what I'd been told. A typical reaction to an allergic shock. Not dramatic, just terrifying. What was that paperwork about? I asked, remembering how they'd pulled him away. I had to cover the hospital bills. You don't have health insurance. Stopped paying ages ago. Seemed like a waste. Michael, he said, clearly frustrated. You can't go without it. Not in this day and age. Sorry, I muttered. I hope I didn't cost you a fortune. It's fine. I'm just glad you're okay. Bradley was crying when you left. He'll be relieved you're all right. Bit of a role reversal, I joked, trying to lighten the mood. Too soon, Swash muttered, but cracked a faint smile. He started the car, and we headed home. The light outside had that soft, filtered look you only get during mid-morning in autumn. It was around 11, if I had to guess. My stomach growled loudly. You didn't finish dinner, Swash said, glancing at me. I know. Sorry. I'll make sure to avoid sesame from now on. There was something in the way he said, from now on. Like he expected I'd be sticking around for a while. Or maybe I just wanted to believe that. So, when are you going to see him? Swash asked out of nowhere. His tone was quiet, but there was tension beneath it. Who? I asked, genuinely confused for a second. Then I realized, Malone. I had promised to see him today. Oh, probably this evening. I need to call him first. Swash looked disappointed, maybe even a little jealous. I couldn't blame him. He had done so much for me, and I'd done very little in return. But this was where life had taken us. Sometimes we don't end up where we hoped. Sometimes people don't get what they deserve. I never thought I'd end up living like this either, not exactly a childhood dream. But here I was. The rest of the drive was quiet. My stomach grumbled again, louder this time. But in that silence, I started feeling something else, something warmer. I was looking forward to seeing Bradley again. We walked into the apartment. It was quiet. I made my way to Bradley's room, but it was empty. I took him to Rita's, Swash called out from down the hall. Okay, I replied, a little disappointed. The reunion would have to wait. Get some rest. I'll make something to eat. I sank into the couch, the magic couch, and closed my eyes. Sleep tugged at me. Either it was the hunger, or the couch really did have some kind of power. I could hear sounds coming from the kitchen, the soft hiss of cooking. Then I caught a whiff of eggs. My stomach groaned again. I thought I heard the beep of a phone keypad, but I couldn't be sure. My senses still felt off. Hi, Rita. He's okay. We just got back. Oh, really? Tell him it's all right now. Okay then. I'm waiting. I heard the sizzle fade as Swash took something off the stove. A few seconds later, toast and eggs. My first meal of the day. Swash came into view holding a plate. I sat up, trying not to look too desperate. The toast had melted cheese oozing out. The eggs were scrambled, mixed with bits of sausage and what looked like herbs. I smiled at him. You really can't stick to a simple recipe, can you? Swash smiled and handed me a plate. I took it eagerly, only to nearly drop it a second later from the heat radiating off the bottom. Ouch, hot! I muttered, rushing off the couch to set it down on the dining table. I shook out my hand, glaring at him. He chuckled softly, clearly amused. I shot him a look but sat down anyway. Hunger took over and I dug in. Swash sat across from me, quietly watching. It was a bit awkward, being observed while eating, but honestly, I was too hungry to care. I polished off the toast just as the lobby buzzer rang. Without checking who it was, Swash pressed the door release button and returned to his seat. A moment later, the doorbell rang again. He opened it, and Bradley burst into the room, running straight to me. Rita followed behind, looking worried, until her eyes landed on me. "Michael!" Bradley slapped his little hands against my knees, looking straight up into my face. I smiled at him. This was his version of a hug. Honestly, I preferred it. "Thank goodness you're all right," Rita said, reaching the table. She looked hesitant to touch me, like I might shatter. I gave her a quick Bradley hug of my own. She smiled in return. From behind her, a small face peeked out. "Emily, say hello," Rita gently encouraged. "Hello," the girl said shyly. Swash crouched in front of her, looking directly into her eyes. She looked like she might vanish from nerves. He gave her a warm smile, and eventually, she returned a small one. "Hello, Emily. I'm Swash." She nodded and shook his hand but stayed quiet. When it became clear she had nothing more to say, Swash returned to his seat. He glanced at me again, longer this time. I pretended not to notice. Bradley took the seat beside me, while Rita joined Swash at the table. Emily lingered for a moment, then wandered to the couch and sat. I decided to break the silence. "So, how are the party preparations going?" "Oh, they're coming along fine," Rita said, then shifted the conversation back. "How are you feeling?" She looked at me like I'd just survived something far worse than an allergy. Really, it was just a reaction. "I'm okay." "You stopped breathing," Bradley added, looking up at me wide-eyed. "Did it hurt?" "A little," I admitted. "It was hard to breathe." "Will I get an allergic reaction like that?" His voice trembled. I hadn't thought about what it must have looked like to him. Me choking, panicking, swelling. It must have been terrifying. For a kid his age, it could have been the scariest thing he'd ever seen. "I don't know, Brad. Maybe not. Or maybe you're allergic to something and just haven't discovered it yet." His face fell. "I don't want to be allergic," he sniffled. Swash gave me a sharp look, then turned to Bradley. "You're not allergic to anything," he said in a reassuring tone. But Bradley looked back at me. I was the one who had gone through it. Maybe he thought I had the answers. I smiled. "Don't worry. You're not allergic to anything yet." Swash shot me a look, but I couldn't lie, not even to comfort a child. Bradley stopped crying, though he still looked unsure. "I'm allergic to broccoli," Emily piped up from the couch. Everyone turned to her. "There's a difference between not liking something and being allergic, sweetie," Rita chuckled. "But it makes my mouth feel funny. Please, can I be allergic to broccoli?" she pleaded dramatically. That broke the tension. We all laughed. Even Bradley managed a smile. The mood lifted, and conversation flowed more easily. Emily chimed in now and then, shy but engaged. Rita talked about the upcoming birthday party and shared bits of her life. She was divorced. Her ex-husband was some successful businessman now living in Europe, more into models than real relationships. Emily had no memories of him, which probably made things easier. Bradley eventually left the table to sit with Emily, and they flipped through channels before settling on some nature show. Swash entertained us with stories from his college days. I mostly listened and laughed. No one needed to hear my stories. Then Rita looked at Swash, tilted her head, and said, almost wistfully, "It's a shame, really. You being gay." Swash looked up, caught off guard. "Why is that?" "I thought I'd finally met a decent, single guy who loves kids." "Has anyone ever told you you're incredibly attractive?" He smiled, blushing. "Yes, but thank you." He glanced at me, just briefly. I felt something flutter in my chest. Jealousy? That couldn't be right. I had a... Shoot. I glanced at the clock. 5:45 p.m. What's wrong? Rita asked. I'm supposed to meet Malone this evening. Who's Malone? She asked. His boyfriend, Swash answered quickly. Rita turned to me in surprise. Oh. I got up and went to the guest room to find my phone. Nothing. I searched everywhere, even checked the couch. Still nothing. Looking for something? Swash asked. My phone. Can you call it? He dialed. I listened for the ring. Silence. It's off, he said. I sighed. Great. It was already 6:09 p.m. I didn't have time to waste. Saturday evening traffic was picking up. I'll just go without it. Michael, are you leaving again? Bradley asked, looking worried. I'll be back tomorrow, promise. I couldn't miss your birthday even if I tried. He smiled, reassured, and turned back to the TV. Emily let out a shriek and hugged him when a chameleon snatched a dragonfly on screen. I chuckled and turned to the adults. Sorry to leave in a rush. It was really nice seeing you, Rita. I'll try to visit sometime, once I get your address. She nodded warmly. Swash looked like he had something to say but settled for a polite smile. I grabbed my keys and left. My mind buzzed with worry as the cab crawled through traffic toward Portage Park. I hadn't called Malone. What if he wasn't home? What if he was waiting at my apartment? Too late to turn back. Eventually, we escaped the downtown congestion and the ride sped up. I remembered my decision to wait a month before moving in with Malone. Had I even told him that? Thought I had. No, I hadn't. I meant to send a text, but Bradley had woken up and interrupted me. Thanks, brain. The driver's voice pulled me back. What's the house number again? I gave him the address. As we neared Malone's house, my nerves kicked in. The street looked different at night, harder to navigate. But I spotted the landmarks I needed. I checked for Malone's car. It wasn't outside. Could mean he was out, or it was just in the garage. Then I saw it, a Harley-Davidson parked right in front. A visitor? On a motorcycle? That narrowed the list. As far as I knew, only two kinds of people rode bikes like that, the bold and the arrogant. Often they were one and the same. Take me to the next house, I said. But this is the one, the driver replied, puzzled. I made a mistake. The next one. He drove past. As I looked back, I saw a man at the door, ringing the bell. I got out in front of the next house, quietly making my way toward Malone's. The man at the door hadn't turned, so I couldn't see his face. He wore a leather jacket and jeans, broad-shouldered and tall. Malone opened the door. The hallway light cast the man's features into brief clarity. Recognition hit me like a punch to the chest. Then Malone stepped out, blocking the light. They talked for a moment. The man entered. Malone glanced around, as if expecting someone else. I ducked behind a wall, my heart pounding so loud I could hear it in my ears. I knew that face. He looked different now. Maybe because the last time I saw him, he had a knife pressed to my throat. My heart pounded as I leaned against the wall, trying to make sense of what I'd just witnessed. Had the loan sharks actually tracked me down here, to Malone's place? Was he in danger now? He let that man in so casually, so maybe not. But what if Malone didn't realize who he was dealing with? Laughter from inside interrupted my thoughts, sending a new wave of panic through me. Were they friends? No, wait, what if Malone had asked that guy to spy on me? I stayed hidden on the side of the house, the wind cutting through my jacket. It was freezing. I strained to hear what they were talking about, but the voices were too muffled. After what felt like forever, at least 10 minutes, the man finally came out. Thanks, man, he said. Don't mention it, Malone replied. Try not to hurt anyone out there. I swallowed hard. So, Malone did know what kind of work this guy did. The motorcycle roared to life, and he sped off. I stared down at the pavement, unsure of what to do next. I wasn't safe here, or anywhere. If these people could find me even here, then I was seriously in trouble. There were no cabs in sight. To even get one, I'd have to walk at least 20 minutes to the main road, and it was bitter cold. Still, it seemed like my only option. You can come out now. I froze. Malone's voice. He'd known I was there the whole time. I turned slowly. He stood at the corner of the house, arms crossed, wearing only a t-shirt. Clearly, he hadn't missed me hiding out back. I felt the panic in my chest begin to shift into something else, curiosity, and maybe even anger. What was that all about? I asked, staying put. Mike, come inside. You're going to freeze. He looked cold himself, but I didn't want to move. If I stayed outside, at least I could still run if I needed to. How do you know that guy? I asked, my voice sharper than I intended. Today was the first time I met him, he said, now standing in full view. I heard you laughing with him. Don't lie to me. His name's Mallory, Malone said with a small laugh. I thought it was a girl's name at first, but apparently it works for both. Everyone just calls him Mal. I relaxed slightly, but I was still suspicious. What were you guys talking about? He just wanted to know something. Malone's teeth were chattering now. His hair was damp, probably from a recent shower. If he stayed out here much longer, he'd catch a cold. I sighed. Let's go inside. The living room was warm. Malone rubbed his arms and flopped onto the couch across from me. He offered a smile, but I wasn't in the mood. Hey, he said gently. Cheer up. You won't have to worry about those guys anymore. I blinked. What do you mean? He came because he thought I was still in a relationship with Jeff, Malone explained. He was looking for him. I told him I haven't seen Jeff in over a year. Apparently, he spotted Jeff at a museum with some guy and a child yesterday. I stiffened. He noticed. I remember things pretty well, Mike, he said with a chuckle. I remembered seeing you with a kid that day in the car. So, I asked if he was sure it was Jeff. He looked confused, and I explained that you and Jeff just look alike. Took a bit of convincing, but he finally got it. He won't come back to bother you. A wave of relief washed over me. I smiled despite myself. Still, a few concerns lingered. Are you sure? What if he confuses me again? Last time, he pulled a knife on me. Malone looked startled. Wait, seriously? I nodded. Yeah. So how can I be sure I'm actually safe? Jeff has darker brown eyes. Yours are lighter, almost gray. I told him to check the eyes if he ever gets confused again. I exhaled, feeling the tension start to lift. Malone had just saved me in more ways than one. No more threats. No more worrying about borrowing from Swash. I smiled, and without thinking, I leaned closer. Just as things escalated, I gently pulled away and returned to my side of the couch. You're welcome, Malone said with a small, affectionate smile. He gave me a light kiss on the cheek before settling back. I felt grateful and guilty. I doubted him so much earlier, but he'd done nothing but help me. I really hope Jeff doesn't get hurt, Malone said after a pause. I didn't know that guy was so dangerous. He seemed pretty easygoing. I thought he was just the muscle for the group, not someone who, well. Yeah, I said softly. I hope Jeff has their money. They're serious. I mean, they even tracked you down, and you haven't seen Jeff in over a year. That's true. But I wouldn't know how to find him even if I wanted to. He never came back after his accident. Maybe he lost his memory? It's possible, I said. We sat in silence for a moment, each lost in thought. I hesitated. What I was about to say wasn't easy, but it had to be said. Mal? Yeah. I can't move in with you. His smile faded. What? Why? It's too soon, I said gently. I know you said you didn't care how long it took, but we've only known each other for 2 weeks. But you already said yes. I've been getting everything ready. What? Come with me. He stood and I followed him upstairs. He stopped in front of the room across from his own. When he opened the door, my eyes widened. The room was beautiful. Warm lighting. Cream-colored sheets. A fully furnished space. I walked to the closet, hoping, praying, that he hadn't bought clothes too. But of course he had. Nice brands to... I spotted a diesel jacket. No Lanvin, but still. You didn't have to do this, I said, smiling despite myself. I have clothes. You deserve this, he said with a soft grin. Think of it as a new beginning. With me. A wave of déjà vu washed over me. I couldn't help but remember Swash grinning at the door when I'd asked about the clothes he'd bought me. I chuckled softly. Somehow, these odd, cinematic moments always seem to find their way into my life. I walked up to Malone and kissed him. He deepened the kiss immediately, but I gently pulled back before things got carried away. It was starting to feel like the beginning of something meaningful, not just physical. 1 month, I whispered, catching my breath. What? I don't want us to rush. Let's take a month to really get to know each other. And if we still feel the same way after that, maybe then we can talk about moving in. Malone smiled without hesitation. That sounds fair. We'll take our time, get it right. Exactly. He looked into my eyes and added, I doubt I could ever care for you more than I already do. I laughed, a little flustered. Well, I guess we'll see. Malone took my hand and led me back to the living room. I felt calm and genuinely happy. Tonight had been full of unexpected turns, most of them good. The threat I feared had passed, Swash Sloan no longer weighed on me, and Malone, he had shown just how much he cared. We sat on the couch. He picked up his phone. Hungry? A little, I admitted. I'll order pizza. What do you like? Pepperoni, I guess. Isn't that the only real kind of pizza? I teased with a playful grin. Malone laughed and made the call. I leaned back, content. For once, things seemed to be falling into place. After hanging up, Malone turned toward me. I crawled across the couch until I was closer to him. How long until the pizza gets here? I asked. Our faces were close, so close I could feel the warmth of his breath. About 20 minutes. We've got a little time to kill then, I said, closing the gap between us and stealing a kiss. He kissed me back, but then pulled away, smirking. Didn't you just say something about taking it slow? I gave a sheepish smile. Technically, I think we've already passed a few checkpoints. Still, he said with a chuckle, I had imagined tonight being dinner and a movie. Come on, I nudged. You know you want to. Hey now, I'm not just some object for your amusement, he said with mock indignation. Says the guy who once owned a drawer full of, never mind. I laughed and flopped back to my side of the couch, stretching my feet across his lap. He glanced down at my feet, then back at me. What's this now? Foot massage. No way. I don't even know where your feet have been. I have excellent hygiene, thank you very much, I said, wiggling my toes. He caught one of my feet and started massaging it. I closed my eyes. It felt amazing, like a weight lifting off me. I couldn't help but let out a little sigh of contentment. He grinned. You're ticklish? I blushed. Maybe a little. The doorbell rang. Malone stood and returned a few moments later with a pizza box. He disappeared into the kitchen and came back with a 6-pack of beer. Really? I raised an eyebrow. What? I thought we could have a manly dinner, he said, laughing. I don't really like beer. I'm more of a cocktail and lime soda kind of guy. He smirked. You couldn't sound more sophisticated if you tried. Are you even allowed to drink? Just pass me one before I start throwing pillows. He laughed and handed me a bottle. I tried it. Not bad. I could get used to it. So, what movie are we watching? Fight Club. Ever seen it? I heard it's a classic. Nope. Who's in it? Brad Pitt. I gave him a knowing smile. Oh, well now I'm paying attention. He narrowed his eyes. Hey, I'm right here. No swooning over movie stars. He loaded the DVD, grabbed the remote and pizza, and joined me back on the couch. We each took a slice and settled in. I was a bit confused at first, but the film drew me in. It was dark, complex, with surprising moments of humor. By the end, I understood why people called it a classic. After the credits rolled, we talked about the film and then drifted into more personal topics. I learned Malone was an only child from West Virginia, had earned an honors degree in building technology, and worked for a major construction firm. He was impressive, quietly so. He asked about my past. I answered honestly, up until high school. I hesitated. What's wrong? He asked gently. You seem like you're holding something back. I sighed. I don't really talk about high school. What? He said, trying to lighten the mood. Did you get bullied? You could say that. Come on, you're way past that now. It couldn't have been that bad. My parents died, I said flatly. The room fell silent. I surprised even myself, blurting it out like that. Maybe I was just done keeping things bottled. Malone had proven over and over that he was someone I could trust. So, I told him the full story. By the time I finished, my voice cracked and tears streamed down my face. He pulled me into his arms without hesitation. "It's okay," he whispered, holding me close. "That's all in the past. I've got you now." His embrace was warm and steady. I relaxed into him, feeling safer than I had in a long time. He kissed my forehead, and I closed my eyes, grateful. He was right. The past was behind me. I wasn't that scared, lonely kid anymore. I was here, in this moment, with someone who truly cared. A deep yawn escaped me. Malone smiled. "Sleepy?" "Emotionally drained," I replied with a chuckle. "Then get some rest. I've got you." And in his arms, I let myself drift. "It's late. We should probably get some sleep." "Yeah," I nodded in agreement. We stood from the couch, and Malone reached for my hand as we made our way upstairs. After opening up to him the night before, sharing a piece of my past I rarely told anyone, I felt closer to him than ever. It wasn't something I was ashamed of, but it was still deeply personal. Only a handful of people knew. In his bedroom, I lay on the bed while he climbed in next to me and pulled the duvet over us. He gently kissed my neck, making me smile in the dark. "Mal, I need to go back to my friend's place tomorrow." "Yeah? What's going on?" "It's his kid's birthday. He's turning 5. They invited me, kind of a big deal for the little guy." "That's sweet. Maybe I can get him a gift." "What's he into, robots?" "Cars." I laughed. "Animals, actually. He's obsessed with them." "Well, I don't think I can show up with a puppy." "You don't have to get him anything. I just wanted you to know I'd be gone for a bit." "Don't worry, it's only for the day." "That's totally fine. Just give me a call when you're free, okay?" "I will." He kissed my neck again and wrapped an arm around me. I noticed he wasn't wearing much and suddenly felt overdressed in my sleep clothes. I quietly changed into something more comfortable and slipped under the covers again. We lay close, the warmth of his chest against my back, his heartbeat steady and calm. There was something beautiful in the simplicity of being near him. Still smiling, I drifted off to sleep. I woke up early. Malone had shifted back into his usual sleeping pose, arms spread, one leg hanging off the bed. I chuckled softly and leaned over to kiss his neck. His tousled hair made him look even younger. I just watched him for a moment, marveling at how lucky I'd been. Just a couple of weeks ago, I met this incredible guy, kind, funny, and impossibly attractive, and somehow he was now a big part of my life. I knew I wanted to make some changes. I was going to leave my old job behind, for good. Not just for him, but because it felt like the right time. I didn't know what the future held, but Malone was definitely going to be in it. I got dressed, grabbed my things, and slipped out quietly. The early morning air was cool, brushing against my back as I walked. The neighborhood was peaceful, with neat lawns and a few early joggers. The trees were shedding their leaves, autumn in full swing. Everything looked beautiful. Or maybe I just felt that way inside. A cab zoomed past and ignored my call. I sighed, but kept walking until I reached the main road, where I caught another cab. Thankfully, Sunday traffic was light, and I reached Swash's place in no time. "Guys? I'm back." "Michael!" Bradley came running out of Swash's room, all smiles. I checked the time, 7:43 a.m. He was definitely an early riser. "How's the birthday boy?" I asked, scooping him into a hug. "Dad doesn't want to wake up," he giggled, then darted back into the room. I followed him in. Sure enough, Swash was sprawled across the bed in a way only he could manage. I poked him. "Swash, come on. Time to get up." "10 more minutes," he mumbled, face buried in his pillow. "All right," I laughed. "But in 10 minutes, I'm dragging you out by your legs." I took Bradley into the living room, where he switched on the TV and found his favorite cartoon channel. It made me smile to see him acting like a typical 5-year-old. "I found your phone," he announced, pulling it from under the couch. "Thanks, Brad. It wasn't working earlier." "Yeah, it's dead." I took it to the guest room and plugged it in. When I returned, Swash was finally up and moving, though he looked like he needed about 8 more hours of sleep. He plopped onto the couch beside me. "So, what's the plan for today?" "Rita's party," he said, rubbing his eyes. "Then maybe do something else fun after." To my surprise, he got up and made breakfast. We chatted while he cooked, and I told him Malone had taken care of the debt. I didn't need to borrow money anymore. Swash smiled, genuinely happy for me. We ate, got dressed, and prepared for Rita's party. I decided to put in a little extra effort today. After all, I'd be meeting other parents, many of whom were probably fairly well off. I pulled out my sleek Lanvin jacket. It felt like the right choice. We arrived at Rita's just before 3 p.m. Technically, we could have walked. She lived just around the corner, but the short drive was a shared misjudgment we only realized afterward. Rita answered the door with a bright smile and pulled us into a hug. "I'm impressed you're even walking straight, Swash. You were really knocking back those drinks last night." "You started the game," he replied. "I couldn't just give up." I raised an eyebrow. "You're hungover?" "Just a little. I'm good now." Inside, the house buzzed with cheerful energy. A handful of guests mingled, chatting over snacks and drinks. It was refreshing to see people genuinely engaging in conversation instead of burying their faces in screens. I was soon pulled into a conversation with Brian Weiss, a parent who worked in IT consulting. He seemed friendly, though his enthusiasm for his job was more than I could keep up with. Thankfully, Rita reappeared to save me. "Michael, there's someone I'd like you to meet." Actually, she wanted to meet you. Grateful for the interruption, I turned to face the new person. She looked slightly older than most of the other guests, maybe late 30s, with a graceful, classic look. Her short, reddish-brown hair framed a heart-shaped face. She extended her hand politely and I shook it. "Michael," Rita began, "this is Brianna." "Brianna Beedham," she added smoothly. Then her tone shifted. "So, you're the one who's been spending time with my husband." My breath caught in my throat. Time seemed to freeze. Rita's eyes widened in disbelief. My heart dropped. This couldn't be happening. Thanks for listening to today's BL story. If it made your heart skip a beat, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Only here on BL Stories, where love knows no limits.